this January. And no matter how many geese lay their warm breast against the ice or fly across its hard chest, it doesn't break or sink or open up and swallow them. The ice is frozen water. There is no metaphor for exile. Even if these trees continue to shake the crows from their branches, my sister is still farther away from her mind than we are from each other, sitting on opposite ends of a park bench, waiting for the evening to swallow us whole. In the last moments of a depressive sun, in the last moments of a sun, my sister says a man was chasing a goose through the snow. My name is Roger Reeves. Just gonna be I grew up in this church and they always just said, I'm not gonna be before you long, and then the minister would take like a real long time after that. But I'm really not gonna be before you long. I wanna dedicate this reading to folks like Raquan McDonald and Lakia Boyd. This next poem is called The Mayor of Money, and it's for Emmett Till. Do we know who Emmett Till is in here? Okay, so I don't have to explain what Emmett Till is. Chicago connection. Let's go. Another dead mare waits in the shoals of some body of water. Waits to be burdened. Born into a foaming ocean where it might become food for whales or simply empty signifier. Hair latched to the sea's undulation like Absalom's beauty, caught in the playful branches of a tree desiring union. Entanglement. Thick confusion. But not this mare. She does not get the luxury of a lyric. A song that makes our own undoing or killing sweet, even as we go down into the fire to rise is smoke. This horse lies eyes open among the stone and freshwater crawfish in Money, Mississippi. She listens to the men's boots break the water when they drop a black boy's body near her head, then pick him up only to let him fall again there, bent and eye to eye with her. As though decaying is something that requires a witness. As though the mayor might say, on Tuesday after the rain fell, the boy's neck finally snapped from the weight of the mill fan. He never looked at me again. Or the boy might say, no more. They part here. The boy's body carried back to town by another. As the horse stays, says nothing, because horses don't speak. Besides, this one's dead. When I was I did an MFA, which is a fine arts degree in poetry, so if you're really interested in poetry after you get your BA, you can go get a fine arts degree in poetry. You can just keep doing this, at least for like 10 years. And while I was out, I was at one of my favorite places is Austin, Texas, but it has this issue, as most places do in the South, as most places do all over America, actually. The Midwest has its issues too, don't get it twisted. We live in the most segregated, it's one of the most segregated cities in the country. But I was running, I'm a runner, I ran in undergrad, and I was running one morning, and I was running in front of university. This man decides to follow me, which is not new. If you're a runner, people follow you and shout strange things, but this time, he just decided to shout nigger at me. Nigger, nigger, nigger. And I had been asked by a friend to write a running poem, and I never could, but then after this, I was like, maybe I can. Cross country. When I ran, it rained niggers. Early in October, the first creases of autumn, a flag-weary sky in which yellow birds in flight slip through the breastbone of God and tear at the coarse threads that keep the morning knit tightly around his heart. What was it that they sang about the light? Their tones, the thistles they plucked from the bitter bark of an allthorn, then thrust into the breast of whatever God, a good animal, requires eating. A good piercing. These blonde bodies thrashing about above me were death's idea of the morning passing. Here, below the golden altar, the making and unmaking of my body. The kettle clank and souring sumac of a man yelling at the light, slipping in and out of my mouth. What name must I carry above the dust of this field? bruised ear, blank body, purple tongue, bloody God, bleeding, do you hear me? Deer piss and poison ivy made pungent by the dew and morning sun rising, do you hear me? When I ran, it rained niggers. In a ditch along the road, a pair of wild boars slain and laid tusk to tail point, as if required, in two directions at once, toward my running body and the Munder's moon and the tar of this road, and away from the middle red light, coming up through the chaff, rising above this hectare field, and the man yelling, nigger, and the cicadas tuning up to tear the morning into tatters. Nigger in the squawk and clatter of a hen complaining of a hand, reaching below her bottom and removing the warm work of a cold night. Nigger in the reeds covering the muck of a beaver's hard birth. Nigger in the blue hour of a field once wet with the breath of a lone horse cracking along its flanks. Nigger in the fog lifting from this field in the stillbirth it reveals. Nigger in the running, in the bog at the end of this road, in the war and in between the wars. Nigger in the pink salted eyelashes of a woman I love, her mouth pulling water from behind my knee, pulling, fake. Nigger is the God of our brief salvation. Nigger in a body falling toward a horizon. Nigger in the twilight that is no longer a twilight, but a black creek fumbling along the spine of a boy who is running through a city that is running out of water. Even the lions have left for the mountains. This is America speaking in translation, and glitter, and gold grills and fried chicken. Auto-tune this if you must. Cher will be singing in the brush of static from the attic radio, believing in love after love or life after love, despite the impure thoughts of evening, despite the rain soaking the red head of a red bird, now dead in a puddle that refuses to reflect the rain. Y'all with me? All right, y'all mighty quiet. Mighty quiet. I'm also really interested in this visual artist. We're in the Fine Arts Building named Jean-Michel Basquiat. In fact, the cover of my book is Charles I. It's one of Basquiat's paintings. And I was for like a whole summer, I just kept like trying to write to this painting, write to Basquiat, write about this painting in some ways. And so this next poem is very much informed by this cover. By the way, just a fun fact, Jay-Z actually owns the original of this. Yeah, Jay-Z's a big art collector. I don't know if y'all know that hip hop is like moving into like art collecting. No, seriously, like it's a real big movement right now. Chris Brown is one of the biggest like young black art collectors. Just like, you should own art, black folks. So this next poem is called Some Young Kings. Y'all know who Mike Tyson is? Yeah. All right, y'all know who Charlie Parker is? Jazz musician, created bop, right? We wouldn't really have hip hop if it wasn't for Charlie Parker. We wouldn't have that sort of sense of cadence of music that you get in hip hop. Y'all know what Oz is? Yeah. There was a show on HBO, also The Wizard of Oz. Last reference, y'all know who Jack Johnson was? All right, Jack Johnson was a black man, famous boxer, and he had the greatest response. He was charged in Arizona for running prostitution, but he wasn't running prostitution. You got to think about this is the Mann Act. So the Mann Act was a way of keeping black folks from not marrying and having sort of intimate relationship with white folks. So Jack Johnson gets accused, quote unquote, of being a pimp because he's basically driving in a car with two white women. He was not a pimp at all. But he was pimpish. And so he has this great quote where he says, they ask him, why are white women so attracted to you? And he says, because I eat cold eels and think distant thoughts. And I think that's the hardest shit ever said. I eat cold eels and think distant thoughts. Damn. So all that informs the making of this poem. Some Young Kings. The Mike Tyson in me sings like a narwhal, minus the nasally twang of sleeping in a cold ocean. The unsightly barnacles latch to the mattress of skin just below my eye, the white horn jutting out from the top of my head. Oh, God bless us mutts, the basset bloodhound mulattoes, the pug-mixed puppies left behind the dog-pound cinder block walls, as German shepherds, labradoodles, and Portuguese water dogs turn their inbred behinds and narrow backs at our small-mouthed blues. It's hard to smile with an ear in your mouth, two names and a daughter hanging by a thread from the railing of a treadmill, Old Neck and North Carolina, and a white coat of paint for all the faces of my Negro friends hanging from trees in Salisbury, Greensboro, Guilford County. The hummingbirds inside my chest with their needle-nose pliers for tongues and hammer-heavy wings have left a mess of ticks in my lungs and a punctured lullaby in my throat. Little boy blue, come blow your horn. The cows in the meadow and Dorothy's alone in the corn with Jack, his black fingers, the brass of his lips, the half moons of his fingernails clicking along her legs until she howls, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker. Oz is a man with a mute body on an HBO original show that I am too afraid to watch for fear of finding my uncle, or a man that looks like my uncle, which means finding a man that looks like me, slumped over a shiv made from a mattress coil and a bar of ivory soap. Most young kings return home without their heads. It's 1941, and Jack Johnson still loves white women, and my mother won't forgive him. If she can't use your comb, don't bring her home, my mother says in 1998. It's 2009, and I still love white women. Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker. Often I click the heels of my Nikes together when talking to the police. I am a cricket crushed beneath a car's balding black tires. Most young kings return home without their heads. So for the last poem I'll read y'all, I think it's good to write poems to yourself, like poems of self-love, because we loathe ourselves sometimes, right? Particularly like when you're in school, like when I was in my MFA program, and I'm trying to write poems because I'm thinking about, I want these poems to like matter and change folks' lives, change my life, be there after I'm dead. And you get sort of heavy because like when you look at the canon, it'll look mighty white, and you start to leaf through things, you realize women weren't really added to Northern anthology of literature until like after I was born, right? You had 2 prior to 84, right? If you think about, there was only like Langston Hughes. So as like a black poet, you coming up against a tradition that's a tradition in which you don't see yourself that often, right? It's changing. Like I'm here before you saying, hey, go write your poems, y'all, right? Let's go write these poems. Let's go tear some shit up, right? And let's like change it. So this was a poem that I had to write to myself. Right? And it borrows a line from Frank O'Hara. I was reading a Frank O'Hara poem, and he had this really sort of beautifully vulnerable line where he says, someday I'll love Frank O'Hara. And I thought that's exactly the sentiment of where I was at. So this poem is called Someday I'll Love Roger Reeves. Until then, let us have our gods and short prayers, our obligations, our thigh bone connected to our knee bone, our dissections and our swans, our legs gashed upon a barbed wire fence and our heels tucked behind a lover's knees. Let us have a stalk of sugarcane to suck and another to tear our backs with what it knows of disaster and a tadpole's folly. Let us have mistakes and fish willing to come to a bell rung across a body of water. Let us have our drawbridges and our moats, our heavens no higher than a pile of dried leaves. Let us have irrelevance and a scalpel, a dislocated ankle and 3 more miles to run, a plastic bottle to hold nothing but last names and a chill. If none of this will be remembered, then let us keep speaking with tongues light as screen doors clapping shut on a child's finger. For this is love, to press one frame against another, and with something like a finger's found between its pressing, press nevertheless. For this is our obligation. Let us forget our obligations. For this is love. Let us forget our love. Our eyelids need for beginnings and ends and blood. Our coils of hunger that turn another into dry honey on our hands. And what if this goes on forever? Our hours, our drafts and fragments, our blizzards and our cancers. Then let us hold each other toward heaven and forget that we were once made of flesh. But this is the fall our gods refuse to clean with fire or water.